So I was literally eating lunch, watching some videos, and this one came up. I do watch Bill Maher mostly so I can yell at the TV about what's going on. Not gonna be able to show you the video because I know he does like copyright stuff. But he had Sean Spicer on to talk about his new book, and boy, was my inner snowflake coming out on this one. So yeah, I'm just gonna play the audio, and I'm going to lose my shit for how stupid the things Sean Spicer says here. This is ridiculous.
First up, he is the former press secretary to.
I don't need this part. Where's Sean? Keep us the joke about the book.
Book there over your nuts. I'm not gonna. No, we're trying to say that
politically incorrect.
We have to come together as a country with the people on your side and people on my side. So I'm not here to kick you in the nuts. Dangerous Plan for America is the name.
Okay, so here's where this point starts. So, the name of the book is Dangerous Plan for America. I forget the exact title, right? But so he's claiming that the Democrats, specifically Biden and Kamala's plan for America, is dangerous. So, Bill is calling him out on his, shall we say, inflammatory language. And this is okay. So this is another thing that drives me nuts. When we try to talk about these things, like, okay, if you're going to call it dangerous, please qualify how it is dangerous, right? And he's going to have some cockamamie, mealy-mouth, terrible answer. But this is the problem. Literally, this is the problem, right? Rather than addressing the specific policies that the administration is going to implement that are bad, he just calls the entire agenda dangerous. Okay, well, I can point at cars and call them dangerous too. Does that mean we should no more cars? Right? Cars are expensive too. Does that mean no more cars? Right? So this is tricks that people will use regarding the language around the argument that they're opposing to avoid having a deeper discussion on the specifics. So just paint the whole thing with this broad brush and we have to throw it out.
Tell me what now. I've also said on this show that the 3.5 trillion seemed like a lot of money for a country that not that long ago never passed the 1 trillion mark. And I'm not sure what's in it. I don't think we spend money wisely.
Okay, these are all, and Bill is making his own really bad points here. Okay, so two things. One, this shows that Bill doesn't actually know what he's talking about. The $3.5 trillion bill. The framing on that is very specific. One of the things that I don't hear enough people talking about, and this drives me nuts because this was the same problem with with Bernie's Medicare for All discussion. We're not talking about the nuance within this, right? So the $3.5 trillion bill isn't $3.5 trillion. It's $3.5 trillion over 10 years on these programs. Over 10 years. So let's break that down. 3.5 trillion over 10 years is 350 billion a year. Okay? So we don't spend money wisely. That's not the point of a government program. Well, I should be clear. What Bill talks about is we don't spend money wisely is literally the Republican talking point, government programs are inefficient. Government programs are not meant to be efficient. They are meant to be essential. Efficiency is not the goal when dealing with an essential, right? Do you efficiently buy a home? Do you efficiently buy food? Do you efficiently eat? No, right? Efficiency is I forget who talked about this, but I heard a really great explanation as to why the problem with it, or why the problem with the focus on efficiency is so bad. Efficient systems are efficient because you have stretched things out as thin as they can go, and if there's a shock anywhere in the system, the whole thing breaks, the whole thing falls apart, right? Supply chains are efficient because that's about making profit, right? And supply chains aren't typically impacted by things that are going to affect the supply chain, which is why when you see things like weather causing ports to close or ships to be blown off course, like any little impact on a supply chain has massive repercussions. Why? Because the supply chains are built for efficiency, right? So what's the opposite of an efficient program? A robust program, right? Buildings aren't, or I need to clarify here. Buildings in California are built to withstand earthquakes, right? So that means they have to be built in very specific ways. That is not efficient. but it is safe, right? The building is robust, right? And so this is the polar opposition, right? Efficiency is on one end, safety is on the other, right? And yeah, sure, there's middle ground, but the reality is that you don't necessarily want middle ground isn't a compromise in most cases, right? Do you want a compromise on your roads? Do you want efficient, halfway between efficient and safe roads? Probably not. Do you want halfway between an efficient and a safe car? Probably not. Do you want halfway between an efficient and a safe building? Right? So, as always, it is about understanding when to apply this thing or that thing, right? And I talk about this all the time. Capitalism isn't a bad system, right? But when applied to the wrong thing, when you use the wrong tool for the wrong job, you're going to have bad results. So back to the spending bill. It's 3.5 trillion over 10 years, which means it's 350 billion every year.
So
this is going to come
I
to the
have
next one.
reservations, but dangerous plan for America. It seems like all the conservative books are like, you're always playing this dangerous radical card.
Well,
is it really
look, first of all,
dangerous?
I think it is. I think you look at how we're dealing with China, how we withdrew from Afghanistan and the aftermath of that, what we're doing in the economy, inflation going rampant. All of these things are a concern of mine. Plus, if you can spend $3.5 trillion and not know what's in it.
I'm going to let him finish this point in just a second. But, so pay attention to what he just did there. Bill was talking specifically about the reconciliation bill. He then lumps in all these other things the administration has done, and then to paint the entire thing with this broad brush, right? No. You got to go point by point, right? What was bad about our withdrawal from Afghanistan? What was bad about what's going on, or how we're dealing with China? What's bad about can we talk about the specifics on the inflation, right? Because what causes inflation, and what are the causes causing inflation right now? And then he says he's going to say this.
All you're doing is shoveling out money. So
well, they do know what's in it.
No, they don't.
Well,
okay, so this is a really another bad talking point, right? We're spending money on things that we don't know what we're spending them on. Okay, so is your complaint that we're spending money, or is your complaint that we don't know what we're spending it on, right? Because if it's one, well, now we're talking about how much money is okay. If it's the other, well, okay, so why don't we know what's in the bill?
There's not a single member of Congress that's read that.
well, they don't.
There's not a single member of Congress that's read that. So, Sean, is your problem that we're spending too much money? Or is your problem that the people in Congress, whose job it is to know what's in the bill that they are voting on, not knowing what's in the bill? Is your problem that they are not doing their literal job and understanding what is in the bill that they are voting on? Right? So he's conflating these two things. Oh, it's too much. We're spending too much money because they don't know what's in the bill. Well, why don't they know what's in the bill? That's their job. Right? Why are we not critiquing them on not doing their job then, instead of about the dollar amount?
Yeah, no, because it's 1,000 pages. But we do know
1,400.
Okay, Sean.
I'm
you
just
know
saying, Bill. But
I know,
we've not ever spent 3.5 or $2 trillion as a clip.
Bull. That is bull, and Sean knows it's bull. Why? So again, back to the dollar amount, right? So 3.5 trillion. They keep throwing this number out without the added context of over 10 years. Why is that important? Because if you can do the simple math, which it is really simple, you can then compare it to other budgets, right? I have a simple example, Sean. What's our military budget? I'm not going to just say this. I'm going to literally bring up this figure. Okay, here we go. All I did was type it into Google. What is our military budget? $705 billion. What was that about? We don't spend this kind of money in a single clip? Sean? What were you lying? So this is the problem. They are framing these numbers in two very different ways. One is a budget of multiple programs, many programs over 10 years. This is literally how much we spend on the defense's discretionary budget over 1 year. So why is this not a problem, Sean? But 350 billion, half of this is, and what programs are we spending this money on?
said that, but nobody ever knows what's in a giant bill like that. So let's just talk real talk. And
Okay, and this isn't, so that is another problem, right? Nobody knows what's in a giant bill like this. That's a problem. Why do we not know what's in a giant bill like that? Their job is to know what's in it, right? If they're voting yes or no on it, they need to know what they're voting yes or no on, right? Well, it's too big. So break it up! This blows my mind. Literally blows my mind that they like, oh no, this all has to go together. No, it doesn't. If there's too much for one person to understand in this thing, then break it up.
go to talking
But
points.
it's what it's being spent on.
Okay, but like I remember
Okay,
you guys.
there it is. That's the key. It's what it's being spent on. Thank you, Sean. Thank you for revealing what your true agenda is. So what is it being spent on, Sean? 5. $3.5 trillion infrastructure bill. Can I get some numbers in here? Okay, here we go. Also, remember how no one knows what's in the bill. So, actually, sorry, I need to see if you guys can see this. Uh-oh. Okay. $110 billion for roads and bridges. What were you lying, Sean? No one knows one, no one knows what's in this. 2, what are we spending it on? That was the question, right? What are we spending it on? $110 billion for roads and bridges. $66 billion for railroads. $65 billion for the power grid. $65 billion for broadband. $55 billion for water infrastructure. On and on and on, right? So all this stuff, cybersecurity, public transit, airports, this should be a little more clear because for the environment is very, very vague. Ports, safety. I think I have to imagine this is highway pedestrian pipeline. I'm sorry. Let me go back. These want to be cleaned up to Superfund and brownfield sites. Okay. Yeah. See this needs more specifics. Appropriations here to address highway pedestrian pipeline and other safety areas. I'd like more details here. Western water infrastructure. Okay, that's a little broad, but Western water infrastructure makes sense. Electric vehicle charging stations. Okay. So here's what's not in the scaled down bill. For childcare and universal, what's in. This will be what's in and what's not. Childcare and universal pre-K. So these are all very corporate subsidies. These help corporations, okay? So this is in here. Well, this is good for the American people, right? But let's think about this. Is this good for corporations? Well, if we don't have universal childcare and pre-K, that means parents have to stay home to take care of kids, right? So is this good for corporations? Yes, because mommy and daddies can now go back to work. Okay. Not that that's bad. I'm not saying that this is bad. Since clip chimps and yeah. Anyways, this is not bad for people, but this is good for corporations too. $150 billion for home care. Okay, seniors. Keep seniors and disabled people alive. That's good for them. It's also good for corporations because these people spend money. They're retired, or if they're not retired, they're the wealthiest people. I don't want to say the wealthiest. Typically speaking, seniors are at the end of their lifespans and are therefore wealthier than younger people. Okay, so this is helping keep consumers alive. It's good for businesses. $200 billion for child tax credit and earned income credit. This is only be expanded for 1 year. And to be clear, what has the child tax credit already achieved? It's cut child poverty in half. Within 1 year, it has cut child poverty in half. No other program that we have ever done regarding poverty has been anywhere near this successful. And they're only, just 1 more year. Okay. Is this good for businesses? Yes, right? Children require products to be consumed to take care of them. This is good for corporations. And again, to be clear, I'm not saying that these are bad for people. I'm just saying that pay attention to the trend, right? Home care, access for older. Okay, home care for older Americans. Again, This is good for corporations. If we keep older people alive, they can still consume, right? And employing home care workers means they also have money to spend consuming stuff. So, clean energy and climate, greenhouse gases. Okay, this is probably one of the few things that I've seen that is not just out and out good for corporations. However, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs. This is good for corporations. Employ people, spend money. Employ people, have money to spend on consumer goods. That's good for corporations. Now, the specifics here may not be good for corporations, but $130 billion in ACA credits. Okay, this is good for hospitals. I don't know if I'd consider this good for like corporations, but considering that hospitals are run for profit, this is good for business. $35 billion in Medicare hearing coverage. Now, this is good, but what was the original proposal? The original proposal was to include dental, vision, and hearing for Medicare. Just covered. Period. End of story. Right? While dental and vision coverage did not make the cut, Medicare recipients will have coverage for hearing aids and hearing tests. This isn't, and this is one of the few things that I've actually heard specifics on. This is not a fully accurate statement. They're getting vouchers, and it's like I think it's $800 vouchers. So no, hearing is not covered. You get part of whatever you may need for hearing covered. Part of it. Part. $150 billion for housing, affordable housing, including. Okay. This is still good for corporations because $150 billion for housing. This is not going to be mom and pop construction companies, right? This money's going to go to. What are they called? Not property companies. Real estate companies. This is going to be going to real estate companies. Real estate companies hire construction companies to build houses, and then they sell those houses to people. This is good for corporations. $40 billion higher ed and workforce. Okay, the original proposal for this was 2 years of free community college. So public education was no longer K through 12. Public education was going to be K through 14, right? So those associate's degrees that help you get those entry-level jobs that require 3 years experience, that was the original plan. What are we down to now? Pell Grants, an increase in the amount of money that you get refunded after you spent it on colleges, which make profits off of what you spend them on. The majority of colleges, well, I should be careful how I say this. I don't want to get. I'm going to skip over that. That's a whole nother topic, right? So, but this is good for colleges. Colleges are businesses. This is good for business. Equity and other investments. Spending in this area. Maternal health. Community violence interventions. Okay. This is good. I don't know. I actually cannot immediately tie this back to being good for corporations. So this is one of the few things that, like, this is just flat out good, and I don't see how corporations benefit from this. $100 billion for immigration, but also separate. Okay, so this requires a separate ruling. Corporate alternative minimum tax. Show at least $1 billion in profit. I don't know how I feel about corporate taxes. I've heard arguments for and against. Personally, I think the easiest way to handle this is not to tax the corporations themselves, but to tax the gains that the people who make money from the corporations make. So not the corporation itself, but the end. I don't call it user, but like the people who get paid out at the end, right? So increasing capital gains taxes. I would actually, I'm a proponent of taxing stock purchases, and then when you sell a stock, the realization of the gains, and then splitting up because one of the arguments is like, oh, just increase the capital gains tax, and the capital gains tax is you're taxed when you sell your stock. So when you realize the profit from the purchase and selling of that stock, that's when you finally get taxed, when you actually get the money. I think that's good. I do think that's good. But The problem with that is that an easy way to skirt that is what the really, really rich people do is they own a ton of value in stocks. And then what they do is they then take out personal loans against the value of those stocks and then live off those loans, right? So they never actually have to sell the stocks, therefore they never have to pay the capital gains tax. Well, why would they do that? What's the interest rate on a loan? An incredibly high interest rate is 10%. What is the capital gains tax right now? 25%. They've already saved themselves 15% on that very money, right? On top of the fact that you have to pay fees and all the other stuff that is associated with selling the stocks in the first place, right? Whereas you go to the bank, you spend a few hours, hey, I want to take out a loan, like major money savings. And the important part of that is what happens to those stocks when those people pass away? Well, they're given to someone, right? They're inherited. You do not pay taxes on stocks that you've inherited. So these stocks have gained value over the entire time they've been held, and then they're just passed off to somebody else, and there's no taxation on it. Which is why I think, personally, what you do is whatever the end taxation percentage you want to be for the capital gains, you take a piece of that off of the end when you sell from the capital gains, and you tack it onto the beginning. So you're taxed when you purchase the stocks, and when you sell the stocks, right? Because then you're at least getting something out of the value that they gain, even if they're never actually sold. So, and like I guess there might be easier ways to achieve this, like a wealth tax, or but this is where things get complicated, right? And one of my big issues with all of this is the tax code is just too complicated. Like it honestly, everyone pays taxes, so taxes should be really, really, really simple, right? It should be so simple that I can literally look over my statements and then know how much I am paying. Period. It should just be that simple, right? Because the more complicated it gets, the more it incentivizes, or the more it advantages people with wealth. Because if I can pay someone who is a tax specialist, literally their job is to know taxes. If I can pay someone to then take a look at my taxes and go, how much can you save me? I save more money simply because I had more money. Whereas the average person who can't afford that tax specialist, they're now paying taxes that they wouldn't necessarily have to. Whereas if it's so simple, everyone can understand it, then, like, yeah, you don't have tax specialists, therefore those people, like, those aren't jobs that exist anymore, okay. But, like, then, like, everyone knows how much they're paying right off the bat. And then another thing that I actually think is an interesting idea is taxes should not come out automatically. Simply because what happens is when people see the taxes, that's when they freak out, right? So, like, no one talks about, or people don't really talk about the taxes that they pay on their paychecks because it's just taken out automatically, right? And most people don't look at their pay stubs. Like, I actually personally avoid looking at my pay stubs because I don't like seeing the amount of money that's taken out in taxes. Not because I don't agree with taxes. It's just really disappointing to go, oh, I made that much, and then, government, I have to give that much to the government, right? But Europe has a very interesting way of handling that. How do taxes on payroll work in Europe? The company pays them, right? So when you negotiate with your job as to what your pay rate is, right? Your pay rate isn't what you actually make. It's what shows up on your paycheck that gets taxed. In Europe, their pay rate is literally after taxes. So the company figures out what they have to pay in taxes so that you get the rate that you negotiated in your negotiation with the company, right? So if my pay rate in Europe is $20 an hour, I take home $20 an hour. I don't get paid and then lose taxes or lose money, have taxes taken out to then get a different amount, right? My literal take-home value for every hour that I work is $20. Why don't we do that here? Anyways, so here's definitely what's out. Paid family leave. So they wanted 12 weeks. They're talking about 4, but even that's uncertain. Why is this out? Because it's bad for corporations. Because what do we know about parental leave, right? We know that children bond with their parents very strongly in these early portions of their life, right? It's very, very, it's not, I don't want to say essential because that's not, but like, it's nearly essential, right? This like has massive impact on not just the relationship that a child has with their parents as they grow, but it also has a massive impact on them just as an individual. And everywhere else, like we are one of 6 countries in the entire world, not in the modern world, not like of wealthy countries, like 6 countries in the entire world that do not have any guaranteed family leave for giving birth to a child, right? Why is that? Because we know psychologically it's good for the child. So why would we not want our citizens to grow up in a healthy environment? Let's think about that. Why? We already talked about this. Medicare drug pricing. So here's another one. The ability for Medicare to negotiate drug prices directly with pharmaceutical companies was also cut from the final framework. Wait. Why? Why don't we want Medicare to be able to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceuticals? Medicare is the single largest healthcare provider in the country. That's the point. It's supposed to work that way, right? So why do we not want the single largest healthcare provider in the country, which, by the way, is funded by your taxes, right? So if we're so concerned with how much this is going to cost, why is this not in the bill? Which, by the way, actually, I'm going to look this one up too. How much does the price negotiation for pharma save? Let's just go with the first one. Trying to be not 10%, like 20% benefits. Here we go. What has CBO said about potential savings? CBO estimated over $450 billion in 10 years savings from Medicare drug price negotiation. 12 billion savings from subsidized. Okay, so including this in the bill, if we just did this, right? If we allowed Medicare to negotiate drug prices with pharmaceuticals, that would save $450 billion a year. So if this is about the price tag, why is this out? What else was in this? Okay, free community college. We already talked about that. Billionaires' income tax is out of the plan. I wonder why that's not in the plan. I wonder why. I wonder why that's not in the bill. Why this is not getting passed. I swear there was something else that I saw that was... Oh. Proposal was offered. Oh, here's and that's the original, so I'm not going to get into that. But anyways, look at what's out. Paid family medical leave, Medicare expansion, drug pricing or negotiation of drug prices, free community college, and a billionaire's tax. Look at what's in. Roads, bridges, railroads, power grid, broadband, water infrastructure, cybersecurity. Again, I'd like more specifics here. Public transit, airports. Again, more expansion here. Environment, ports, safety, water infrastructure, EV charging stations, and electrical buses. So everything that's in is in some way good for corporations. All the things that have been like altered or are like cut back, like. So, Sean, one. What are we? Or no, I'm sorry. What was his first critique? We don't know what's in the bill. Really? Are you sure we don't know what's in the bill? It's in writing. How do we not know what's in it? Like, yeah, it's a lot to read, but that doesn't mean that you can't read it and know what's in it, right? And if that's your complaint, okay, then break it up. Make it smaller chunks. This one's on environmental shit, right? This one's on public transit and like. Okay, and then 2, what are we spending it on? Oh, I don't know, Sean. What are we spending it on? Anyways, back to the clip.
The exact same thing about Obamacare. It was going to be the end of freedom. It's been over a decade. It wasn't, was it? Was it the
Well, I
end
think-
of...
Okay, and so this makes the this is the important part of the because he says more things that make me mad, but this is the crux of the conversation, right? And to be clear, both sides do this, right? I'm not saying this is a right wing like tactic, and I don't even say like everybody does this, right? The language in which we use to describe things is very 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 important because words are loaded, right? So a simple example: communism. A lot of people will hear the word communism and freak out, right? It's got a really really negative connotation. But when we ask people what is communism, most people don't answer correctly, right? So let's look up what is communism. Okay. Can I bring up the... Anyways, I'm just going to read it off here. A political theory derived from Karl Marx advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. Okay. Where in here does it say government runs everything? Is that what that says? No, that's a method that you can use to achieve this, but that's not what communism means, right? And the best description I've heard of what communism means to communists is a stateless, classless society. Stateless. Stateless. That means no government. So if the goal of communists is communism, and the end result of communism in their eyes is no state, how does a government run everything in communism if there's no government? If that is the goal, right? Okay. What are some of the other things that they bandy about that like terrifies people? Socialism, right? Okay. A political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned and regulated by the community as a whole. This is not the same definition as communism. You have to use those words interchangeably, right? What is Marxism? Political economic theories based on Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, later developed by their... Okay. Form the basis for the theory and practice of communism. So Marxism isn't the same thing as communism, which is not the same thing as socialism. But remember the last video I did going over politics stuff? What did Ben Shapiro do? He used them interchangeably, right? So here is one part of the problem, is that we use words in a very, very non-specific way, right? We do not talk about the very specific definitions of these words. Secondly, the hyperbolic nature of the words that they use, right? Sean, what is the name of Sean Spicer's book? Dangerous Plan. Okay, what's the plan, Sean? Well, he literally tried to lump in this $3.5 trillion over 10 years infrastructure bill with what we did, our withdrawal from Afghanistan, with our response to China and what's going on there, with the economic impact of COVID, with like on and on and on and on, right? So he tries to take the plan and he takes all of these incongruent, separate things that we can talk about on an individual basis and lump them all together and say, here, this is what they want to do. Okay. But do I talk, like, is that how we talk about vacation plans, right? Oh, I'm going to Italy. What are you going to do in Italy, right? Oh, well, I'm going to go see, like, okay. And then secondly is the words that they use to describe the thing, right? Dangerous. What's dangerous about it, Sean? We don't know what's in the bill. Yes, we do, right? And this is where I get really, 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 really frustrated, is instead of talking specifics, instead of being grounded in facts and information, instead of talking about, like, well, they want to do this actual thing, it's skewed and tilted and exposed in the light in just such a way so that it looks as scary as possible to the people that you want it to be scary to, rather than engaging with the thing, right? So, and why is that? Well, because we don't want to have conversations on the substance, right? So, like, one of the things that I actually had my mind changed on was, or what is it called? Rent control, right? So the concept of rent control, I think I've talked about this before, but the concept of rent control is an appealing concept, right? But in practice, what are the results, right? And so I found out that in multiple places where they've implemented rent control, the results are not the intended outcome of what rent control is supposed to do. So rent control is about keeping prices low on housing so that people can afford to buy and own homes, right? So that you're not stuck in a rental market where like, well, I can't afford, you know, $1,000 mortgage every month, so I have to pay $900 a month in rent, right? Like, how is that helpful? So the goal is like, oh, well, rental prices need to be lower so that people can save to then afford to buy an actual house so they're not renting for their entire lives, right? So like you'd have to, anyways, I don't want to get into the details of that, but that's the goal of rent control, right? What are the actual outcomes of rent control? Well, the people who own properties to rent them out, apparently it's not about just making X amount of dollars on that property. It's about making X amount of dollars, period. It's about the total of their passive income, not the profit margins on the properties. So all rent control does is it causes people with the resources to buy more properties to then reach the goal that they were trying to reach for their passive income to begin with. So yes, it does keep rent prices lower. That's good, except the end result is that there are no places to buy with the money that you've saved on the lower rent. And I'm not saying lower rent is bad. That's not a bad thing, right? But one, it's not enough of a difference to be majorly impactful. Like, it doesn't achieve that goal of people being able to save the money to then buy the homes, and it only causes more properties to be purchased because the goal of people who rent properties out on a mass scale like that is not to make a profit margin, but to make a specific amount of passive income. Doesn't solve the issue. Therefore, it is a bad policy, right? Just like, well, this is more about slogan than about the actual policy, but like, and I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for this one. Defund the police. Okay. Conceptually, I agree with it, right? I think this is terrible sloganeering. I think it is a horrible slogan. This is a really, really, really bad this is the really bad way to explain what the policy really is about. Or policies, I should say. So defund the police is about diverting funds from police budgets to other things to supplement what police do. To literally pay specialists to do things instead of having cops handle everything that they handle, right? So like, one of the big things that people talk about here is like mental health experts, right? Having a social worker come out and deal with what are they called? Welfare checks, right? Having a social worker deal with a welfare check call instead of a police, right? And like, I don't want to get too deep into the specifics, but that's what it's about, right? Well, part of the problem with this policy is, besides the name of the slogan, taking money away from police does not pull well with people in most communities, right? So like, this is a very liberal, and I don't want to say liberal, but like, this is a very like elitist. I shouldn't even say it that way. The people who support defund the police are not the people who live in the communities which would be majorly impacted by this, right? Because the people in those communities are against the policy. Well, if the people are against the policy, then maybe it's not a good policy. Or we're just not explaining it appropriately, right? Which is again why I brought up the like, I don't like the name of this. This is really bad sloganeering. But anyways, the point I was trying to make was the language that is used to talk about these things is incredibly important, coupled with the framing that is used to talk about these things. 3.5 trillion. Take out the over 10 years, and then we can say, oh, well, look how much money we're spending. This is so much money. Really? We've never spent this kind of money before? This is an incredible amount of money? This is an unprecedented amount of money? Okay. We don't know what's in the bill. Oh, wrong one. We don't know what's in the bill. This is a massive bill. It's too big to understand. Is it? Is it? They don't even know what's in the bill. Are you sure about that? Pretty sure. Not only do we know what's in the bill, but you don't know what's in the bill, or you don't know what's being taken out of the bill. Because if you're so worried about the price tag, why are we taking out things that save money, right? And then the broad brushstrokes. It's a dangerous plan. What's dangerous about it, right? Like, I work in safety. I can tell you what's dangerous about doing certain practices, right? But I wouldn't tell you the entire process of doing a thing is dangerous, because it's not. So yeah, that's my rant for the day. Thanks for listening to me go off. This one really pissed me off. And he does say more, but nothing of any substance. So if you want to watch it, I'll include a link to Bill Maher's actual video, so you can watch the video instead of just listening to the audio. But anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.